Australia has got a very large land mass with a low population density and low air risk. So flying and doing things like beyond visual line of sight, it was a lot easier to get approvals here than, say, somewhere with a higher population and air density in other countries. But, I found that the FAA, we utilised a lot of their work for flying over people. They were quite forward-thinking there, that we actually utilised a lot of their work to get those sort of approvals here in Australia.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 433. With remote BVLOS operations becoming a game changer for the drone industry, how can organizations successfully navigate these complex regulations? For that question, we head to Queensland, Australia, to speak with Jackie Dujmovic, founder and CEO of Hover UAV. Hover UAV is a trailblazer in the drone industry, helping clients advance their operations and navigate complexities of drone regulations. By understanding each client's unique needs, the team creates customized procedures, documentation, and policies to ensure success in this fast-growing field. Whether it's a client's first commercial flight or they're pursuing specialized approvals for cutting-edge missions, Hover UAV offers a full suite of services. These include building organizational strategies, crafting industry-standard safety cases, and providing policy recommendations to keep clients ahead of the game. One of their standout achievements is the development of SORA-Mate, an online risk assessment tool created with ANRA Technologies as part of the Australian government's Emerging Aviation Technologies Partnerships Program. SORA-Mate simplifies the process of securing BVLOS approvals, making advanced drone operations more accessible and streamlining regulatory requirements. Jackie brings nearly a decade of experience in the UAS industry. She's not only a commercial UAS pilot, but also an accomplished chief remote pilot, known for building strong communication frameworks with regulators across national and international levels. Her mission? To integrate drones seamlessly into everyday life, all while maintaining a firm commitment to safety, compliance, and operational excellence. Beyond her work at Hover UAV, Jackie serves on the boards of Safe Skies Australia, the Australian Association for Uncrewed Systems, and the Vertical Flight Society, further contributing to the growth and safety of the drone industry. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Jackie shares Hover UAV's innovative approach to drone operations, key lessons learned from working with global leaders in drone technology, and her insights into the emerging trends shaping the future of the industry. But before we hear from Jackie, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for your continued support. Every episode is crafted with you in mind, and your generous donations are what make this podcast possible. Whether it's the cost of a coffee or a larger contribution, your support helps cover the production costs and keeps it going strong. Donate today and be a vital part of the podcast's continued journey to greatness. And if you donate $100 or more, you'll receive an official Drone Radio Show coffee mug as a thank you gift. To donate, head over to droneradioshow.com/donate. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave a rating and review on iTunes. It really helps to improve the visibility among the thousands of active podcasts today. And if you've got a great drone story to share, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. Now let's learn about remote BVLOS operations with Jackie Dujmovic of Hover UAV. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Jackie to introduce herself.
Yeah, my name is Jackie Dujmovic, and I am the founder and CEO of Hover UAV.
Jackie, can you start by telling us what Hover UAV does?
We're a regulatory consulting organisation. We've been around for nearly 10 years now. Early on, we started off doing a lot of trials and testing and services, but we really found our passion about 7 years ago of, helping people move forward, especially with their regulatory and their compliance and trying to work out how all of this emerging technology came together.
Does Hover UAV provide direct drone services?
Only flying we do is usually for trials and testing. So a lot of organizations, they know that they need to move, beyond visual line of sight, or they know they need to incorporate drone in the boxes. And sometimes they don't know where to start. So often we're brought in to say, can you come up with what we're going to use, come up with the procedures, develop the safety cases, and then train our internal team how to use it. And then we usually step away.
What makes Hover UAV stand out in the drone industry?
I think what makes us stand out is, I don't know, I think it's just us as a team as well. We're really, completely honest. We understand there's so many challenges. We're sort of truthful with our clients. So they'll come to us with a problem, or even it's for the future stuff, or they'll also come with a problem saying, we've got a lot of compliance issue or having crashes, and sort it out. So we'll sort of work with them and, advise the best course of action and really come up with the solutions to help the chief remote pilots or those drone leads, be able to expand and grow their drone program effectively and safely.
How would you describe your typical clients?
We've worked with sort of so many organizations over the years. We've worked with, the largest organizations like Wing Aviation when they were first coming to Australia. We've worked with manufacturers like Doosan and Percepto to work out, how their approvals would work for beyond visual line of sight in Australia. We work with a lot of large mining and utility clients. However, saying that, we do day-to-day as well. We also work with, sole operators and small organizations as well.
Would it be fair to say that Hover UAV is the go-to company for businesses that are navigating drone operations and regulations in Australia?
That's exactly. People come to us and we can advise them on the correct pathway to go forward within the current regulatory framework and also work out what's next. So we often work with someone and say, let's start with this as a phase 1. But hey, in 2 years' time, we'll be at phase 5, and that might be a fully autonomous mission flying tent, like maybe no pilot or, flying 50 drones at one time. And we sort of walk them through that process and explain the data that we're going to need to apply to the regulators to get to there and give their team, the best information or procedures for them to do it safely.
Now, you've worked with major companies like Wing, Percepto, and the Australian government. What have you learned from these experiences about drones and the industry?
It's really important to have like a great concept of operations from the client or a really great understanding of what they want to achieve. I think success falls when they know, we want to collect this data, we want to do this autonomous, we like whatever they want, as long as they have a good understanding of that end goal. That usually leads to greater success. The technology is always changing, and obviously we hear it from everywhere around the world that, regulatory challenges are always high up on the list when, people are complaining or anything and saying, it's hard because of the regulatory challenges. Often we can work through all of that. We can work through it if we have a really good understanding of the reasons why an organization wants to do what they do.
When meeting with a client for the first time, do you have a checklist or process to help them get started?
Yeah, we do have a checklist. So we obviously just try to find the general information about their self as a company as well, what equipment they're using, what heights they want to fly at, where they want to do it. And a lot of that information is collected because we're trying to develop safety cases and procedures. So if they want to fly high and, be integrated into, the usual airspace and integrate with crewed traffic, we may need to put different equipment onto their aircraft or their drone, or we may need to have different ground control features or geofencing. So, we usually go through exactly, what they need, what data they need to collect so we can work all those additional things out, which then allows us to make an understanding to say, yes, you can utilize that drone. but you're going to need to put some form of detect and avoid, or you're going to need to have radio communication with other air traffic for your entire flight, or you're going to need to, have a mixture of radio frequency, LTE, and maybe SAT communications. So that information allows us to inform them the best way for what equipment they're going to need, but also their pathway for the regulatory approvals.
Once a company secures their approvals, do you continue as their chief remote pilot, or do they take over?
So we work with companies in multiple different ways. If we're just doing their approvals for them, our aim is to support that chief remote pilot. So we will do the approvals for them. We take it one step further for them. Often chief remote pilots, that new task, if it's beyond visual line of sight, may be new to them. So we develop things like train the trainer packages. So we can support the chief pilot so they can then train their own internal team as well, but they've got someone they can completely ask at any time if they're unsure. The other way that we've worked, our team often work as a chief remote pilot for many organisations. Myself personally, I'm a chief pilot to about 400 pilots across Australia, including for the New South Wales government, a large mining organisation, a large utility company. So drones was not their main core business. So they thought, hey, can I come in and, help them on day-to-day operation, make sure they're moving their organisation, all the compliance is set up. We do all their flight approvals and support all of those pilots to be able to just utilise that drone as part of their everyday tool.
As the chief remote pilot for more than 400 pilots across multiple organizations, what challenges does that bring, and how do you manage it?
It's setting up a structure within an organization and making sure you have the right tools. Having great compliance software, we utilize sort of AVCRM, and some clients utilize that, and also other ones as well. So making sure that we've got those tools and automation set up. So, flight syncs automatically work. So if they fly, we get, accurate record of what the aircraft hours are, the battery hours, and what they're doing. So that automation plays a huge important part. We also have developed a lot of internal structural things like senior pilots. So a chief remote pilot can delegate certain responsibilities. And we see that, around the world with large, crewed airlines as well, where the chief remote pilot doesn't do everything. So as these drone programs, they're no longer these small little teams. They're expanding to sort of, hundreds of pilots and hundreds of drones. We need to put those structures in place, and we can take a lot from what we've seen from the crewed aviation in the past and implement that into the drone and uncrewed programs.
The drone industry has evolved a lot in the past decade. How do you ensure organizations stay compliant and up to date with the regulations?
I think it's really important for organizations to get that foundation and the right approvals. It's actually empowering. Once they understand the legislation from whatever country they are, they can realize they can develop their pathway. There's so many different approvals, so it really just empowers them to do what they need to do.
Does Hover UAV primarily operate in Australia, or do you work internationally as well?
No, we actually have an office and staff members in New Zealand. We also do writing through Canada, the UK, the UAE. So, we work in many parts of the world. Obviously, there's different regulations and some different terminologies between the country. But realistically, when it comes to approvals or certifications, the regulators around the world want to see the same thing. They want to see that an organisation has assessed the risk of what they're doing, and they've put mitigations and procedures in place to be able to do that operation. So we find that a lot of our work done around the world is very similar. We can also leverage. So some of the approvals that were done here is a first of type. In Australia, we can leverage that with, say, the FAA or other CAAs from around the world to sort of show, hey, we've done 100,000 flights doing it this way, and we've had no incidents, or we've only had one report of a failure. So it works for everywhere.
Are there regions where drone technology is advancing faster than others?
I think depending on what sort of approvals, what country. Australia was pretty, forward thinking on beyond visual line of sight early on. So, and that was for a few reasons. Australia has got a very large land mass. when a low population density and low air risk. So flying and doing things like beyond visual line of sight, it was a lot easier to get approvals here than, say, somewhere with a higher population and air density in other countries. But, I found that the FAA, we utilised a lot of their work for flying over people. They were quite forward thinking there, that we actually utilised a lot of their work to get those sort of approvals here in Australia. So it depends. I guess different times through the last 10 years has been, leaders and followers, and that sort of changed as well.
Remote operations allow pilots to control drones from distant locations. Are your clients using this technology? And what's your take on its potential?
So we worked with Percepto 4 to 5 years ago, getting their first approval in Australia for true beyond visual line of sight remote operations. Now, what that is, that's without a visual observer on the site. But today, I think in the last week, we've got 4 different approvals for different organisations just in the week to work like that. So those approvals are sort of becoming more standardised now. And those organisations are now coming to us and saying, okay, we can fly from a remote location. We've solved a lot of those communications issues, but now we want to fly 10 drones, 20 drones. We want to see further cost savings. So now we're looking at things like that, what is the interaction between the pilot and the software, for example? What's that human-machine interface? Like, can that system allow, or do we need, other factors like UTMs and that to come in to sort of, assist with that?
Do organizations need to wait for an effective UTM system, or can they master multiple drone operations now?
I think organisations can master multiple drones. What we're seeing, though, a lot of it is still segregated. So flying below 400 or 500 foot, or in sort of controlled sort of areas. Or I know that I was just following some of the airspace trials in the US, not trials, I think it was actually implementation down in Dallas, that that it can be done even with multiple organisations. So it's definitely an interesting space. Australia is going down one route where we're starting to see, through Europe or the US, they might be going down different routes as well. So definitely a very interesting time, and paying very close attention to that next few years of how it'll all be implemented.
How do you think remote operations will change drone activities, especially with so many pilots under your supervision? Is it business as usual, or will it be a big shift?
Look, in Australia, they sort of estimate, this is just Australia, and as I said, we're a small country, not in size, but in population density. They're expecting 60 million flights by 2043. So we need to get there. And the biggest challenges we're going to face over this next 10 years sort of, or 15 years till we get there, firstly is we have to streamline regulatory approvals. So we need to, make sure that the wait times in Australia for certain approvals can be up to 6 months or even longer. And we're seeing that across New Zealand and Canada, lots of countries. There is long wait time. So we definitely need to solve and have repetitive approvals, or look at something that we've been looking at lately, like large area approvals. So organisations get approved for a large area, and then they self-assess that they can do it safely. And then the next thing is, we need to work out how we can integrate. As to get to those 60 million flights, we're going to need to integrate with other airspace. So how are we going to do that? Look, some companies are looking at sort of that mandatory ADS-B or some form of electronic conspicuity, so we would know where the other crewed traffic or uncrewed traffic is in a certain area. So that's sort of one way that may move forward to help integrate.
Jackie, what inspired you to get into aviation and the drone industry?
I spent 12 years at sea, to be honest. So I worked on super yachts through, Florida and the Mediterranean and the South Pacific, a little bit like below deck. So I did that for many years, and then came back to Australia to have a child. For me, I remember seeing a drone on a TV going, wow, I think that is going to have huge potentials. And at that time, I thought of my maritime life and, could it save someone? Could, we penetrate looking through the water to, check for bommies or check for things so we're not going to hit them when we drive, like going a boat over them. There were just so many different use cases. So that's where it all started. And I can't believe it's been nearly 10 years. Next year, it just seems to have gone so quickly.
How did Hover UAV start?
As I said, I'd seen it on TV and I'm like, you know what? I think I can do this. Like, why not try? And so just registered the business and thought, you know what, we'll try to do some things that we're familiar with. So we, over the maritime, using drones, some of the early projects we worked with was whale snot collecting or whale research. We also are involved with the original shark trials. So we were approached by the Australian government, actually it was the New South Wales government, to see if drones could be used to spot sharks. So we're involved with all those initial trials and actually came up with a lot of the products that were needed, like shark alarms and different life raft drops and things like that. So it was during that time that what we do now was really defined. I just realized how many people out there had so many great ideas and there were so many use cases for drones and amazing smart people, but they didn't know how to make drones an everyday tool. Like, how do we just see it? Like, now I go down the beach with my kids and drones are used every day for shark spotting. And I'm like, wow, that was a great progression from those initial trials through to every day. So how do we do that? And that's where really hover to what we do now really stands out. We just want to see and help people get their trials and testing through to be an everyday tool and part of our life.
So was it just you and a drone at the beginning?
Yep, I did. I was one person, and I'm not going to lie, in my remote pilot drone training, I had a newborn baby, and I'm like, okay, I need to go out and feed the baby and stop. So yeah, look, I started off as a small business. We were lucky to pick up a large government contract within the first few months. So my team did grow. And that was sort of a big learning curve for me too. It wasn't just learning a whole new technology and drones and aviation, because I was maritime before that. It was also learning day-to-day business, like how to make sure that I was running a profitable business, to make sure that I was still going to be here in 10 years' time. And that's something that we're really proud of as well, because we've seen so many drone organizations not make it. And we still own 100%. We've never taken on investors or anything yet. And we're running a very profitable business. So it's something that, we've worked hard to make sure that happens. And we're still going to be around in many, many years to come.
Over the past 10 years, what have you learned about the drone industry?
Never to give up and don't accept no as an answer is probably something I've learned, because a lot of people go, oh, no, that can't be done, or no, that approval is going to be too hard, or no, that'll never work. Not accepting no, going, okay, well, let's find out why you're saying no. Is it because of a risk reason? Okay, well, let's work out how we mitigate those risks and then solving that problem. So that's something that I've learned. The other really large thing is collaboration. You can't do everything. There's so much going on in this industry. You have to collaborate and have trust for the experts in each field. So if someone's an expert in airspace, or someone's an expert in the actual technology or integration, through to us being an expert in the regulatory side, you need to all work together to get to our end goal, which for us was drones as an everyday tool. So yeah, I think collaboration, and we've been so lucky to collaborate on so many projects over the last few years.
What emerging trends excite you the most?
I'm loving seeing more and more organizations move to make more effective drone operations. I think a lot of the use cases or initial case studies have been done. We know that, it's saving surveyors time. We know it's saying work health and safety, it's making people safer. But now how do we actually finally get to those cost savings? Like, how do we make or move to the full autonomy? So they're the trends that I really like, and trying to work out what data do we need to collect to make sure that we can prove that it's going to be safe. So they're just, as I said, there's hundreds of millions of drones flying in the future.
Have you worked with companies in the air taxi or passenger drone space?
We sit on a lot of the working groups for that, and we're following that space very, very closely. So we are doing a lot of approvals for large UAS. So we do feel that, is countries really going to accept straight away, people getting on them? I honestly feel a lot of these air taxis or the larger AAM are probably going to do a lot of trialing through maybe like delivery of larger things, or into remote areas like where our mines and things work. So we are starting to do a lot of approvals for, 800 kilo drones through to, thousands of kilo drones, and experimental certification and things like that. So it's definitely a place, but I think there is still a pathway till we get to full integration and people flying around. Although we need to move quickly. It was the one thing that my son, when he started, his school journey when he was 5. I remember in front of his class, I said, oh, by the time he finishes school in, 13 years' time, they have a school formal or a prom from the US. And I said, oh, look, I'm going to get him into his sort of prom or his formal via a flying car. And everyone sort of laughed at me. So I still have 8 years to make that a reality. So hopefully it keeps moving and I can keep my promise to him.
What's next for Hover UAV? Any upcoming projects or developments you can share?
Look, hopefully we build more collaborations. One collaboration that we've built over the last 2 years was with ANRA Technologies. We collaborated with them for an Australian emerging aviation partnership program and developed something called SORA-Mate. So we've throughout this, the last 30 minutes, we've sort of discussed many of the challenges of people getting those approvals. So what we've developed is more an online automated sort of risk assessment tool to help streamline those approvals for people. My future goal of it is, people get validated for a certain risk and they can use the SORA-Mate to validate that risk to say, yep, you know what, we've been approved to do this. And yes, where we're flying does meet that level of risk. So that was a great partnership. And we hope to sort of see more of that rolled out, because I think tools like that are really going to streamline a lot of people's challenges, which is the regulatory approvals. And then hopefully more and more organizations can incorporate beyond visual line of sight into their operations.
What's been the most rewarding project you've worked on and why?
That was a rewarding project. I still don't think I've seen the full rewards from it because, it's still got to be we've released it worldwide, but I think over the next few years when it's become sort of that everyday tool and regulators from around the world are used to it, that's when I'll be fully rewarded. I can go, wow, it really is making a lot of difference. We know the potential it has. So definitely, if you ask me in a year, I would say that would probably be. I love just going and, looking on socials and things and seeing the organizations that we've sort of helped along their journey, just doing it every day, saving lives, saving wildlife, protecting coastal environments, or working with emergency services and see them use it to better their lives. That's probably the most rewarding thing for me. In 2015, I went to my first US conference and I met Patrick Meyer at the time. And I remember seeing him speak and I went up to him at the end and I said, we're going to be friends. I loved what you said. And I said, we are going to be friends. And I've been so fortunate over the years, even with these new roles now, to be able to work with him over that time. And I love the vision of the power of local and supporting that. It doesn't matter if it is through the We Robotics and the flying labs, to all of it, but, really encouraging all these local communities to be able to do this.
I interviewed Patrick Myers a few years ago. Fascinating work they're doing.
It's making such a difference. The team there it's just such a great program. One of the ones that I do remember working, and actually Patrick flew out, was through the Pacific. We worked with the Fiji flying labs at the time, and I got to go out there and train. It's always on different things. At that time, I was actually just training their senior drone pilots on how to be a good manager and how to be a chief remote pilot, and looking at their procedures and sort of looking at, ways they can go for approvals and standardize a lot of what they do. A lot of the countries that a lot of these organizations work for don't have robust frameworks for aviation regulation. So there's a lot of guessing and as I said, it's really important to utilize what everyone else has done around the world. So that's what we try to. If I get to input anything to those organizations, I can say, look, here is a lot of data. Here is how it's being done here, and here. Maybe you can present that to that aviation regulator to say, is this an effective pathway for you to go then get those approvals?
And for my final question, Jackie, what message would you like to leave about the future of the drone industry?
I guess the message, as I said, don't give up. You keep trying, collaborate, reach out. We're all in this together. So it only starts with a great partnership or collaboration starts with a conversation. So if anyone has something that goes, we really want to do this, but we're not sure how, feel free, give me a phone call, pop me an email. Let's start the conversation and to work out, if it is feasible and if it's something we can work on together.
That's it for episode 433 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Jackie Dujmovic of Hover UAV. I want to thank Jackie for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Hover UAV or want to connect with Jackie, check out the webpage at hoveruav.com.au. If you like the Drone Radio Show, then please subscribe and share. Write a glowing review on iTunes. And if you're able, donate to keep the podcast going. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Doers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.